It is 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for meeting during the day. That's kind of a little new for us. And I know, I think most of you have not had the opportunity to get to know Noah Mills. Noah Mills is a new planner with the NPO. And so this is his first bike and ped meeting. So anyway, any comments from the public?
No.
Okay.
Not at this point.
All right.
But if I have some, I'll let you know.
Perfect. All right, so with the agenda packet, we had provided copies of the minutes from the September meeting and looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. I think that was unanimous. Okay. So, over the last few months, we've been strategically going through each of the plan sheet recommendations in the bike and ped plan, and we are discussing our very last sheet, which is downtown intersection improvements. So the goal for today is to really, at a very high level, look at the intersections themselves, not necessarily spending a lot of time on what's being proposed. But the hope is that you will be able to provide staff with some direction or guidance on maybe what areas to focus in on. So when we talk about the downtown intersection improvements, we're looking at a couple of different things. So we're looking at a curb extension. A curb extension is exactly what that means. So we move the curb into like more of a travel lane. So if you have like on-street parking, that curb would be extended. So it would narrow the road width for the pedestrians to cross. So rather than doing maybe two lanes of traffic and on-street parking, you're only crossing 2 lanes of traffic. Then you're also talking about a high visibility crosswalk. DOT transitioned to, I call the ladder. You might have seen others that are the opposite, parallel high-vis crosswalks, looking at pedestrian heads and push buttons, or maybe even a rapid flashing beaker. So it calls attention that there's someone who's pushed the button and they're standing in the crosswalk. And then lastly, it's called a bike skip line. So if you have an existing bike lane, that the break in that line, as you can see in the picture, it notifies both the cyclist and the motorist that there's going to be conflicting motions of traffic between the two modes. So all of the proposed intersection improvements are some variety of these improvements.
Do you have an estimated cost for the pedestrian push button?
George, do you know?
The push button controls, depending on the miles, between $7,000 and $12,000.
Oh.
Can
It's
I ask
solar
you,
powered.
I have a question about that as well. We have 2 of these, similar or existing already. I can't tell if they're exact. But as the pedestrian pushes it, they cannot see the light, therefore they're hesitant to cross. And are we improving that with any future
We're actually,
ones?
the new ones that we're getting as we order forward will have an audible signal too, so when they.
Oh, these are perfect.
Then they don't make an audible noise, let them know that it's flash.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, we
that's-
recognize that same issue.
Yeah, okay, great.
And I believe DOT's also, that's their new standard. So
So
as,
what about the ones that are existing? Are we going to add audible to that, or are we, what's happening with those?
We may, so the one at Middle and Broad obviously is coming out.
Yeah.
So we'll look at upgrading if we reinstall.
Okay. How far along is that one at Middle and Broad? Because, well, I'm just going to say this, even though it's probably a moot point. I think if we had had the audio or the pedestrian to be able to see that light already, we would have had people stop more. Because what happens is they wait because they can't see the light, therefore the car's like, okay, are you going or not? I'm going to go then. So I just think we could have been, we didn't have to spend $350,000 if we had addressed that.
Well, you
But-
could go back even further than that. There used to be a stoplight.
There used to be a traffic signal at that intersection.
And we had problems even when there was a traffic signal?
No, but
DOT took it out when it was a DOT road.
yeah.
So this is proof that definitely it needs to happen.
Well, whether it needs to happen or not is, they're starting back today, putting the mast and arms up. So in the next 2 weeks, there'll be more construction there to get that completed.
Just think that's it.
I mean, I kind of
So
applaud every intersection can't have a traffic light. That's not the right answer.
Used
So
to
you
not have
just,
to have a
I
stop
mean, you need to
line.
be smart where it is on there.
They'd have a stop line,
Oh.
so that made it.
All right, so we're gonna go,
Next to it with a stop
kind of
line.
looking through the map in broad sections. And you'll notice on your sheets that I've color coded each of the intersections. And so we're not going to spend a lot of time discussing each individual improvement per intersection, but at a very high level, if you see pink, the pink symbolizes high visibility crosswalk, pedestrian heads, and a skip bike line. Orange is recommending a rapid flashing beacon, high visibility crosswalk, ped heads, and the bike skip line. Blue is crosswalks and curb extensions, and pink, again, on the back side is pedestrian improvements with ped heads. So as a reminder, we're just focusing on the areas themselves. So we're going to start with Broad Street, which is numbers 1 through 9 on your map. And what I did to kind of assist in visualization is each of the intersections are color-coded, representing those types of improvements, which is summarized on your sheet. So number 1 is improvements at Fleet and Broad. And again, pink is the crosswalks, ped heads, and the bike skip lane or line.
Is that traffic light necessary on Fleet and Broad? It seems like there's not a lot of traffic.
I believe you'll see a change in the traffic pattern once they get to the redevelopment of Trent Court. That's where you've seen the volume drop because most of the units are closed.
And number 2 is Bern Street and Broad. And you can see that intersection currently doesn't have crosswalks, and so that is one of the recommendations, is adding that crosswalk, among some other ones. Continuing down, we have Broad and George Street, and Metcalf and Broad.
There are a lot of people trying to cross at Metcalf.
Yep, so one of the recommendations at that intersection is adding the crosswalks, among other things. And then making just some other improvements at, for Hancock and Middle. And those include either adding the high visibility crosswalks, head push buttons, and some curb extensions.
May I make a comment about number 5, Hancock? So if you look at the bike lane there, it disappears.
And that has to do with railroad.
With the railroad. So you're in a bike lane, then you're not in a bike lane, then it comes back.
Unfortunately, the railroad has kind of superior power over everything else.
Yeah.
And then improvements are recommended at Craven and Broad. And
Can I ask
then,
you about this one, Margaret? Sorry, I started talking before you finished. Just sometimes we move on to the next one.
oh no, that's fine.
So it says that we're going, I believe, if I'm looking at it correctly, number 9, we're moved, wait a minute, where am I? Yes, number 9, is that moving west 20 feet? Is there something?
So number 9 is recommended to add the rapid flashing beacon.
Okay, is there's something that says add 25 feet to the west, number 8. So, okay, so we're adding something 25 feet to the west. Okay, I was wondering, I couldn't figure out which one was
Yeah.
which.
So I think for number 8, what we're wanting to do is move the ramps from in the traffic circle, outside of the traffic circle,
Mhm.
for a safety perspective. And I have heard some comments before when people come around Broad onto Bern that they don't see someone standing in the crosswalk, just because you're making that right turn.
Yeah.
So those are,
Right.
And that's actually east front.
or east front, okay. But those are some of the details that we can, really dive into once we know that that's the focus where staff's gonna Okay, so once we focus, then we can talk about all the
Yes,
little things. Okay,
yeah.
super.
So this is from a planning document, so they kind of looked at intersections and said, here's a menu of options, and we want all, let's just say 10 options. But in reality, maybe we can't do exactly what they're recommending, or we're gonna tweak it. And
Yeah.
that's where George and his team kind of come in to help us make it right and the right fit for that particular intersection.
Yeah, and also understand much more.
Yes.
Just
You know, one of the issues that needs to be in the equation, in my opinion, is just education, because people are terrible about knowing, like zebra crossings, they don't know what they mean. So in Europe, they're everywhere, and there aren't traffic lights everywhere because people understand and respect zebra crossing. So if you can get an education to the population on you know, has right of way and what you're supposed to do with the various markings, I think that will go a long way at a very low cost to keep traffic flowing and keep people safe.
Yep, and that's something that this committee has talked about doing a pedestrian safety campaign. So that's well, we've started that, at least on the MPO side, sharing information, but we can certainly be more robust on that.
And one of the lower cost items that's not included here, and you've seen them downtown, and I believe we have one on George and on Elizabeth near the middle school, are the not bound pedestrian signs that sit on the center line.
Mhm.
That they seem to be as effective, one, at slowing down traffic, and two, letting drivers recognize pedestrian crossing.
Is that what they call the one that's on Pollock Street?
Yes.
Right
We call them not downs because they got a spring in them in case they're struggling.
Yeah.
They're back up.
there. They do.
I love stuff like that, that's smart.
All right, the next section, we're gonna talk about South Front Street. So this is East Front. Apparently I didn't do a very good job. There's my Bern Street again. So there's East Front Street, and really on this one, just looking at adding some high visibility crosswalks. Then we continue down at Craven and Middle, just continuing to improve that corridor. You can see there's already crosswalks, but putting in either high visibility crosswalks or some other type of treatment that kind of calls your attention to that there's, you know, someone in the crosswalk. And then moving to Hancock and Metcalf again, just adding the crosswalks and the curb extensions. And this is a great example of the curb extension. So look at Metcalf. So you've got on-street parking on both sides plus 2 lanes of travel. So for a pedestrian to cross that entire width takes a little bit longer than if it's just two lanes of traffic. And continuing on South Front, Eden and South Front Street again, curb extensions and the crosswalk, and then at Fleet and Walt Bellamy, as well as Liberty, continuing those same types of improvements. And then moving on to Pollock Street.
Are those projects going to be demolished on Bellamy?
They're trying to.
And is that going to affect the traffic flow?
Yeah, and that's kind of what George had mentioned before,
Yeah.
so.
Those areas I would be apprehensive of using any funds to do anything with the possibility of changes in that area.
And it's quite possible too, depending on how it's redeveloped, there might be an opportunity to work with the housing authority to make some of those improvements, since it would be benefiting the majority of their residents. All right, moving to Pollock Street. Again, same thought process of high visibility crosswalks and other improvements at Norwood. And then on Liberty, Jones, and Pollock, adding the curb extensions, ped heads, and the crosswalk. And continuing at Fleet and Bern again. Again at Metcalf and Hancock. And you can see whether what they did was they took the city and looked at the main thoroughfares and said, let's just do improvements down this whole corridor. Continuing at Middle and Craven.
Is the decision, there's a big controversy on having you know, between the breweries and downtown, having like access to people who want to use both of those, is that gonna affect the traffic flow at all? I mean, should we wait for that decision before we, you know what I'm talking about? There's a term for it, I don't know what it is, I can't remember what it is. But on Pollock, where the breweries are, there's a initiative to make like a thoroughfare where people could hold.
Oh, it's the
drinks and-
open,
Yeah,
open drinks, open container, what is that?
Social district.
Social district.
yeah, the social district. So is that decision gonna affect our decision, do you think?
The Board of Aldermen have shelved that
Oh,
conversation.
yeah.
Well, it's never been a Board of Alderman decision, it's never come to us, that's still with
Okay.
Yeah.
switch there.
Okay.
I would say no, that it's two separate issues.
Okay.
All right, so we'll continue down Queen Street. And again, you can see, as would be expected, all of Broad Street and Queen Street, lots of improvements identified in those areas. And then we continue down with adding crosswalks and curb extensions. And then we've got recommendations at Howard and Hancock. And then continuing down to North Craven Street and East Front Street again. And then heading on over to Linden East Front and Neuse Street. And then looking at the greater Five Points area. And so now we're really more into the residential area, and you'll see that they're focusing more on the curb extensions and the crosswalks. So along Cypress, George, and West, and Cedar. So I intentionally didn't spend a lot of time on each of the intersections because there's too many for us to really dive into the specifics, because this is just a plan, as I mentioned earlier. And really what we're looking for is guidance from the committee on how we can assist staff in maybe either focusing on a certain area that we would like to improve first, or maybe guidance of we agree with the locations, and as funding's available, then we would like staff to make these recommendations as they see fit and what's appropriate. It could be also, as we potentially resurface roads, and take that opportunity to add the curb extensions, et cetera, whatever's the recommendation. So
Well,
at this,
it seems like there should be maybe a combination of different factors, so ultimately ending up in bang for buck. So the most effect per dollar. You know, so if there's a lot of usage, but it costs a lot to do, that would, the cost a lot part of it would lower it in priority. But if there's a lot of usage and it's inexpensive, that would rise to the top. Seems like a reasonable methodology for prioritizing.
is that enough guidance for you, George, or do you?
Well, that's about how, I mean,
Yeah.
you can see that in some of the implementations we've made, even in past years. So when Caper Park, you know, we facilitated the baseball team now being there. Our crews went in and we had contract work done in a lot of those areas, by ADA ramps in those parts of town, and we're still working through. And you'll see it mainly in the older neighborhoods before ADA ramps were required. So we're working our way through town trying to accommodate installing those in some of the older sections. These are not big cost items. We just, as we're in an area, we take care of them.
So does everyone, go ahead.
When are they gonna resurface some of these roads? Like, is it gonna be years? Or,
Some.
I use every dollar appropriated that I get each year to pay.
You know, one other prioritization factor you might consider is there historical documentation of like mishaps in the intersection? You know, because
There is, and we utilize that in evaluating if we need an upgrade in the intersection. And that includes pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle interaction.
So it sounds like we have some consensus. So if someone would please make a motion so we can officially have it on record of how the committee stands in relation to the downtown improvements.
I'll give it a shot. I make a motion that we prioritize as, basically as already being done, but based on a combination of factors including cost and benefit, to prioritize to achieve the biggest benefit per dollar.
Okay?
I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Wonderful. All right, so we've spent the last, good gracious, it's been 6 months or so strategically going through the bike and ped plan and reviewing all of the maps that we've talked about. And really what it comes down to, the two maps that the committee has the greatest influence over are the neighborhood greenway and sidewalk gaps and the new neighborhood greenways. So we've gone through and the committee prioritized each map and identified the top 3 projects per map. And the need for today's meeting really was to put it on record what the committee's top 3 recommendations would be out of these 6 projects. And it's important because the Board of Aldermen are considering a bond referendum and they're looking at the possibility of adding a bike and pedestrian element to the bond referendum. So we're looking for the committee to give us some guidance so that we can then share with the Board of Aldermen that the committee is doing exactly what they asked of them, was we're helping to ensure that staff is working through the plan and that you're guiding us on the priorities as they see fit. So I would caveat this that we haven't looked at pricing, we haven't done any of that. At this point, we're looking at your priorities, and then the goal would be for staff to work on a very high-level cost estimate to present back to the Board of Aldermen for consideration. So while we talked about some of these projects, so for instance, would be a very long path, like for instance, if Trent Road was one of the highest ones, and that was the #1 priority, and there was money associated with that through the bond referendum, then the direction from staff would implement as much as we can along that section. So while the plan says it's from A to Z, we might only funding get it from A to E. So we just kind of want to put that out there. So we've talked about these in a lot of detail. Ben's got his maps together, talk about it. Does anyone have any thoughts, concerns? Do you want me to go over them again?
So these 1, 2, and 3 here are already prioritized?
Yes, so from prior meetings, you have already prioritized in those orders for those 2 maps. Now I'm looking for the top 3 out of this 6, so that we can then share back with the Board of Aldermen.
The #2 on the bottom, Country Club Road diet, what exactly does that entail? Like, it's a 2-lane road.
So the road diet would go from, it's a continuation of what we've already done on Country Club. So we would put in 2 lanes and then bike lanes on the side. We'd just continue that into Trentwoods.
Okay, that'd be great.
So Henry, this is where you want more bang for the buck, and I may want really, really bad roads.
Yeah.
I'm
so
just pointing that out.
We need a methodology for reconciling those differences.
Well, so let's vote. We might not have any.
Yeah, okay.
Can I say something? I mean,
By all
I'm
means.
not part of the
Please.
committee. I'm really pushing for Trent Road bicycle, some sort of, because I use that frequently, and parts of it where there's just 2 lanes, and I ride a recumbent trike. It's dangerous.
So,
It's-
so you're looking for 1 or 2? You're looking for, excuse me, 2 or 3 in the first choice?
I'm looking for 2.
2.
Number 2.
So number 3 is that
Oh, that's
that
that cup
greenway
trail.
that connects
Yes,
to Trent.
right, yeah. Okay, that's why I want to make sure I understand which each one is.
I agree, two is very dangerous as it is right now. I'm always, my hair on the back of my head is standing up every time I take that on my bike.
You don't have eyes in the back of your head, so.
Well, thank you for that. See, I don't use that road much.
Yeah,
So-
I
so thank
use
you.
it frequently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of cyclists ride on that road.
And we're voting for how many? The
I
top
just said
three?
the top three.
Top three,
Yep.
okay. Does anyone else have any questions about any of the others? Do we all understand where they are?
I think Country Club Road should be in the top 3.
I personally think Simmons is very dangerous.
Yeah, I use Simmons quite a bit.
Yeah,
So-
you're on the highway on your bicycle
Yeah.
on Simmons.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way around it.
So on Simmons, it's a road diet, and then that would allow for bike lanes on either side.
Yes.
And so right now, when you're on that, you feel,
No, the whole.
Oh,
This
this
is full
So-
of.
four lanes.
well, I
like
ride it
riding
all
on
the
an
time, and I don't feel that. That's why I'm asking.
No,
If I don't
do-
feel something, I'm
do
wondering why
because-
other
Because
people.
I ride a trike,
Yes, it's wider, so,
and it's wider.
yeah,
and-
and lower to the ground, so you don't
Yeah.
think your visibility, you want
I mean, I
a
have big
specific.
flags and everything, but.
Yeah, I see you a lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
So I
okay.
would point out that Simmons is DOT owned. So that's good and bad. So if we wanted to make improvements, we would have to walk with DOT to make sure that it meets all of their requirements, et cetera. But realizing it's a DOT road, that's something that we could potentially put through prioritization through the MPO, and if it gets funded, then it would be funded at 100% by DOT, and not by the city of New Bern.
yeah.
But that would be out in the future. That's not something, if we went that way, it would be a while if it got funded. There's a lot of ifs in that statement.
Yeah,
But I just wanted in full disclosure
Yeah,
to put that out.
no, it's good information.
so that even if Simmons was in our vote, then we might not even have to pay for it, so we could actually allocate money for other things.
Yes, I would recommend that, realizing that Simmons is the top three, that we could work with the MPO to put it in our long-range plan, which I think it already is. But then we can work with your New Bern representative to advocate for that project. So the next cycle of projects, we're looking at projects in like this summer, fall, to start the next cycle. So that would be something that you could advocate for.
Okay, so-
Is it like phone time almost?
Yeah.
Huh?
Is it like we have to get out our phones
No,
soon?
no, this is open discussion.
Okay, so I suggest number 2 on Trent Road side path is worthy of the top 3.
Yes, I agree
Okay, so
with
we've
that.
got number 2 for
I agree
Trent.
with that.
Okay,
Mhm.
Now, if we're speaking like this, then I always wanted Oaks Road right from the start,
okay.
because that's, I definitely know that that is one that people don't use because of it being so dangerous.
I'm for number 2 on the second one, Country Club Road.
I agree with that as well.
Okay, so do we have any other projects that we want to at least throw in the top 3? Or,
I like Country Club, Trent, and Oaks.
I
That's
think
what
we
I
have the top 3.
okay, so now we have the top 3. Is it in that order? Are we doing Trent, Oaks Road, Country Club Road Diet?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I need someone to make a motion. So that is that these are the top 3
Yeah.
priorities.
I make a motion to apply those as the top 3. I'm not sure what wording you want. If that's good enough, anyone understands it, then.
Trent roadside
Trent
path.
Old Country Club.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion, do we have a second? All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful.
I'd like to thank you again, sir, though. I think that's awesome that you came in and supported whatever you wanted.
Thank you.
So you may or may not know this, but NCDOT did what's called the Vulnerable Road User Study on Neuse Boulevard, and they looked at the crash pattern and history, types of crashes from Racetrack to Queen Street. And with that study, they identified various types of countermeasures or improvements that could be installed along the corridor to make it safer. So these types of improvements were things like adding new crossings, new pedestrian signals, push buttons. And they also recommended what's called the lead pedestrian interval. And that adds about 3 seconds more for the pedestrian to cross. So it's red all 4 lights. Pedestrian hits the button, they have 3 extra seconds to start moving before any of the signal phases start. So it just allows the pedestrian to get out in the crosswalk, hopefully to be seen. Looking at possible alternative intersections to design, new medians and access management, even looking at a roadway reconfiguration, so they're looking at a possible road diet, and then maybe even adding lighting. So this study was actually perfect timing because we're finished the study and DOT is now interested in applying for what's called a RAISE grant. The RAISE grant is a federal grant that is what we just did on that study is exactly why this federal funding is available. So they are actively working on an application. The notice of federal opportunity was released in November. The goal is to submit the application in January, and we are now looking for letters of support from various organizations like the City of New Bern, the NPO. We spoke and briefed the hospital, and they're in support of the project. If we were to be awarded the project, it's up to a $25 million investment for the City of New Bern, and we would be hopefully notified this summer that we are recipients. So we are actively working on this, just wanted to bring this to your attention. And so the recommendation for this project would include a side path or bike lanes, and the road diet itself, and then a sidewalk. So on the northern side, which is the hospital side, will be either the shared use path or a sidewalk. The lanes themselves would either be, if it's a shared use path, that we would lose a lane to put in the shared use path, or we leave the curb and gutter as is and add bike lanes on both sides, and then we have a sidewalk on the south side. So it's in line with the recommendations for the biking head plan. But the RAISE grant is only looking at Glen Burnie to Queen, because that's where we have the majority of people. But the vulnerable user study identifies other safety improvements that we can take from Glen Burnie to Racetrack, as funding allows. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that item. Did you have any questions on that particular item?
So the letters of support, do you need something from this committee?
If you would like to give one, we can certainly draft one and appoint a spokesperson if you would like to do that.
Do you feel like we have enough letters from the town?
All the letters just kind of further support. I mean, they are getting letters from some congressmen and some representatives as well. I think Senator Brinson offered his signature as well. So
I think we definitely need to have a letter from this committee.
Okay.
So does that mean you guys create this letter? Or?
Yes, staff could draft a letter.
Okay.
And you just need to appoint a spokesperson to sign the letter.
Okay. I would do that. I don't have a problem with that. Does everyone want a letter, or does someone else want to be a spokesperson? I don't want to hog the show here.
Hog away.
Okay, we will draft a letter for your signature.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we're coming at the end of our calendar year, and at the beginning of January, we always identify what our meeting dates are for the next calendar year. The bylaws for this committee state that we have to meet at least quarterly. Now that we're at the end of going through the plan, we don't have as much to talk about, and so was recommending us meeting quarterly. So this is staying with the first Monday of the month, except for September because of Labor Day. So this is not set in stone. This is just a recommendation and asking for guidance from the committee.
These dates are okay with me.
That's good to me.
I make a motion we keep these dates. January 6th, April 7th, July 7th, and April 8th, possibly.
September 8th.
I mean September.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
A second.
All right, all in favor? All
Aye.
right, perfect. And just one last item, as we have finished this, the plan, the next meeting in January, we'll give you an update on the raise grant, we'll give you an update on the bond referendum, if there's been any updates. If there's any particular item that you would be interested in, please let me know, so that we can add that to a future meeting date.
Are you going to let us know when our term is up? Because I have no idea.
Yes, and not for a while, so you're good.
And then can you run again, or does, I mean, if there's no one else, obviously,
I'm not,
what
I'm
is
not
the,
sure.
what's the stipulation on that? Anyone know?
I don't know. We'll have to look into that. I do think someone's term is up in 2025, but I can't recall what that is at the moment. But yes, we will let you know well in advance.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion items for the good of the board?
Do we have a time? What time?
I got
I
something.
wanna-
So,
Ask the question.
behind, Kings Row, there was a railroad track a long
Yes.
time ago. So that area would be a perfect place to put a bicycle and pedestrian trail because it's off the roadways and it could connect to New Bern High School.
Yes.
So people that live out there that walk to school or ride their bikes, they could get on that and go there, and it would be an easier way to get around. Because I live in the apartment complex right across from the Big Harris Teeter store, and there's no sidewalks out there, and there's no real side roads to get anywhere. And I always have to go to the stoplight at the intersection of Harris Teeter and make a U-turn to get into town. So it's just kind of a weird area, but that would make it a lot safer for people that have to get, or that want to get around by bike or walking or whatever. And I know they got the Rails to Trails thing. I don't know if that's still a thing or not, but I don't know who owns that property or anything either, so.
Yeah, we talked about this in the past. I think it's privately owned. But we had identified, at least in the MPO, of potential rails to trails type concept there. But again, that we would have to discuss with the property owner since it's private.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so I have two things. One is, and George, I'm not sure if this is something that your department handles, future sidewalks when they end and go into the road. Right now, there's a, let's say this is the curb, to get off the curb, if you're with a stroller or a wheelchair or something, the curb is a diagonal to the road. It doesn't, it goes like to the diagonal to
So
the middle.
it's one curb ramp for
Yeah.
both sides, both approaches.
Right, well, right, you would think so. But if you use them with a stroller, which I have for the past 3 years, it puts you into the road in cars, it's just very dangerous because it's just very dangerous. So future sidewalks, could we make that wider?
And a lot of those you'll see on the bigger roads.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them were DOT implemented
Mhm.
flared sections that accommodate both
Right, okay.
access points for pedestrians.
So I just want to make sure that going forward, as we
We can certainly look. at
do
that.
those things, if we could just make that wider, because it definitely is something that I would rather have my granddaughter go over the curb bumping than go into that one, or those. The next thing is, can someone show me like a curb extension? Can you show me a picture of where one would go and what it would look like up there? I know that you showed where one would go, but I can't visualize what the road would look like. So I see that, but show me a road where you're proposing one, and then what would that road look like?
Broad Street has them.
I'm sorry?
Broad Street has them. So the curb extension is basically an island in front of a parking space. At the
Okay,
end of the
right,
block.
okay. So you're saying that wherever one is proposed, you said you were taking out the chunk of the road,
Well, you would take out either the ashed off area, because you can't have a parking place within so many feet of an intersection. So
Mhm.
whether it be painted, as it is on some roads, it would actually be a curved island. So what it does, it visually narrows the road down,
Yeah,
and it calms traffic, it slows traffic.
right, yeah,
It
okay.
visually seems narrower, even though the road lane is not made any narrower.
So what is happening behind the curve extension? Is,
Go to Ron.
You get it wrong. So,
I just can't, for some reason, I can't wrap my head around it.
downtown, there are planted or vegetated islands.
I think I better stop at one and just take a look at it. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but the ones that I'm bringing to mind, they're actually, like, there's parking behind it.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, correct.
okay, so the ones that are proposed, would there be parking behind it, or is,
If there's on-street
if,
parking,
if there is, okay,
if there's on-street parking.
okay.
Right.
Anywhere on Broad from
Broad.
Hancock back. It's the same way all the way through there. We're doing this.
Which way?
So the ones on Broad have parking behind it, for the most part.
You're going down Hancock.
Oh. Don't let me drive.
Turn right, turn right.
Yeah, really good.
Right, okay.
Oh, that's fun.
Let's see if I'll catch one and we can see it. There's one right there beside the jail, so you can see where the planted island
Yep.
goes out.
Okay,
So that's what it.
so that is,
Yeah, so instead of a pedestrian crossing from this width, they're now crossing over here. So
Yeah.
you've got that whole.
okay, very good, thank you, I appreciate that.
So next year's meetings are gonna be at 17:30?
Yes,
I'm sorry?
5:30.
Oh, yeah, okay. 17:30.
Military time.
Yeah.
All right, any other thoughts, ideas?
Yes, I have one more.
Okay.
The flash and beacon, are they yellow right now? I mean, not the lights, the poles, is everything like yellow, painted yellow? The poles that everything is
For
on?
pedestrian
For
crossing?
pedestrian.
Some are not, and some are actually painted in the, it's a green color. It's
Oh, okay.
Mark
Yeah.
Pitts green, I think. is
I guess I was
actually-
wondering, has there been any conversation that we could not use yellow and use something that's prettier?
Well, we're actually in the downtown area, we've gone to the metal post with the park bench green.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
not, it's an upgrade to the light system, but
Mhm. So with all the future ones, we're going in that
depending on
direction?
where you would be, some
Yeah.
would be aluminum, some would be.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Thank you.
All right, looking for a motion to adjourn?
I know.
I second.